Are you feeling stuck? Like you're standing at the edge of something more, but you're sort of unsure on how to take the leap?
If so, it is time to break free from the hesitation, the self doubt, and that spinning in place. Join us, Lisa and Kari, for Unstuck and Unstoppable, which is a powerful masterclass designed to help women just like you move from uncertainty to bold, clear action.
So, in this transformational session, you'll learn how to break through the barriers that have been holding you back. You'll reconnect with your power and your purpose, and you'll step confidently into your next chapter with clarity and courage.
So, this is your moment to stop playing small and start living the life that's been calling you. If you're ready to move forward with confidence and create what's next, this masterclass is for you.
Absolutely. So go to our website, thethingsweknowpodcast.com, and click on Masterclass. We cannot wait to see you there. You're not meant to stay stuck. You're meant to be unstoppable.
Can't wait to see you there.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. So today we're diving into a phrase you've probably heard 100 times. I certainly have, which is, quote, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. The beautiful words of Maya Angelou. Simple, profound.
And timely.
Yeah,
Because knowing
again.
better, knowing better doesn't just mean collecting information. It means taking responsibility for how we live and how we vote, how we parent, how we care for one another, how we treat our planet. And like this is on a micro and macro level, it applies.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is it again, it's a simple, profound sentence, but not actually that easy to do. I have found in my own life, as well as just the world at large, that knowing better doesn't always mean we do better.
No, it's true. It's funny because when we were being trained as coaches, we often heard how you do one thing is how you do everything. And
Yeah.
I actually realized that's not true because
Mm,
I think like habits take a long time to catch up with integrity, I think.
mm.
And so there are things that people will put like they'll be all in on and like that's just the best of them and they want to show up that way. And then they'll kind of let some other things go and not realize that they're kind of reverting, they're not taking care of their space as well as they're taking care of something at work or so I think while I like to agree with that and I see where that applies, how you do one thing
Yeah.
is how you do everything. It tells you kind of like who someone is. If they cheat on their spouse, they're probably going to cheat at work, that
Another
kind of
great
thing.
Maya Angelou quote. They show
Yes.
you who they are, believe
Yes,
them.
believe them. So
Yeah.
I do believe character shows up everywhere, but I also think when people are learning and observing and like slowly seeing either injustice or patterns and things that they want to change, sometimes it takes a long it takes a long time to like actually show up in their habits
Mm.
and
Yep.
how they're actually carrying things out. So like just starting close to home, my best example is like parenting because it's taught me more about this than almost anything else, right? You can know better and then just I don't know, just your own generational stuff is going to come through. Sometimes you're not always going to do better. There were things I thought I
Yeah.
knew. There were things I thought I knew enough of about discipline or learning differences or about what kids can or should or any of that, right? Be able to do. And then I had to unlearn and relearn and do things differently because your kids are going to teach you a lot, right? About their own
Hmm.
needs and who they are. And probably the best parenting lesson I ever learned, which wasn't taught to me by my own parents. It wasn't shown to me by my own parents, who I think also did a good job with what they had. They did a beautiful job. But I think the best advice I ever got was like, get to know who your kids are and get out of their way. Like, let them be who they
Mm.
are. And that was like, once I knew that, then the work was like actually doing that and like getting
Right.
over my own sort of tendencies and habits and projections to like, take a step back and just let them be who they are and tell you what they need versus like, don't give them a second to know and just like, I know what you need. Like, don't know
Right.
better for people what they need than they do.
Right.
And learn it together. And I think that's been profound for me because like I knew it, I observed it, and then once I became a parent, it took me a while to do it better. And I'm not perfect.
Well, I think that's a great let's amplify that here for a second
Mm,
so that I think what I'm hearing that I think is important for the listeners is when you know better, do better, but doing better might take a minute.
mm,
And not to shame yourself because and I think that's where I've really noticed it, especially with like my clients, right? I know you've had this too, right? Well,
mhm,
I know that. And it's like, yeah, but just because you know it doesn't mean you're gonna do it.
mhm.
And that's okay, right? It might take you it might, knowing and doing might be A to Z, right? And so
Right.
don't shame yourself B through Y because you're not quite there yet, you know? So I think that's a really, I love that example with parenting of like knowing what, hearing that phrase, really feeling that, like, okay, yes, I should learn who my kids are and then stay out of their way. But in a moment of crisis, when your kids are in pain, when something's going wrong for them, it is really hard as a parent not to want to jump in and fix, right? So you
Yes.
know not to do that, but it's really hard to do, right? So I think I want to push that up front here as
Yeah.
we think about this, as we talk about know better, do better, that there can be a learning curve or a time lapse between those two things, right?
Right. And you saying that makes me think of certain clients or friends or family members, especially people with daughters, women with daughters who
Mm,
know that like they want the young women they're raising to, and actually this is really true with young men too. So I shouldn't even say mother daughters. It's just it was easier to observe before I saw this in myself, right?
mm,
Which is I like, it's like do as I say, not as I do. Like I see parents putting everything into wanting to help their kids build their self-esteem, and then they say something shitty about themselves.
yep.
And so like the doing better is model it.
Yes. Yes. 1,000,000%. Caregiving, another great example, and until you have become a caregiver, whether it's for a parent, a kid, a spouse, a neighbor, you're going to think and look at other caregivers and be like, you should, I bet you should, and then you learn a little bit more about patience, a little bit more about the systems that are stacked against the vulnerable. You and I have certainly done pods and talked about that a lot. And I think the thing is, something I say a lot is you can't unknow something. So
Mm,
I think, again, if we're going back to what I was just sort of thinking about, just the knowing is in and of itself the beginning of a transformation, right?
mm,
Because you can't unknow something,
right.
and then you figure out how to do better.
Mm, yeah. So like obviously, the scope of this topic is going to cover a lot because it isn't just personal. It's a great place to practice it in your personal life. Okay,
Sure.
where am I learning and doing better because I know better now? It's like,
Mm.
and you look over time, just as a society, like we got better about recycling. It sounds crazy to our kids, but we got better knowing smoking and drinking and driving weren't good for you. It sounds crazy that we ever had to be told that, but like
Well,
those were
except
actual
smoking has come
campaigns.
back. Like
Right, that's true.
that's a perfect example of know better and we're not doing better. Like
Well, it's a
we
great, yeah,
did
it's a good
better and
point.
now we've gone backwards, as
Right,
with some other things. Go ahead.
right. So like, as we've learned about racism, like people are like, what's this country becoming? No, we're just really learning. We're doing better. We're knowing better about what it's always
Right.
been for a lot of people.
Yep.
Um, for women's rights right now, like we've known better. Right now, we're back in a place where state by state women have varying degrees of rights. Men have the
Yep.
same rights everywhere. It's strange. Why are we there?
Hmm.
LGBTQ, like what, I think we've said many times, our generation stumbling through pronouns is like our parents' generation going, oh, there's two, like they're married, there's two women married to each other. It's like, come on. Like once you know better, you don't instantly do better. It takes some
Right.
time to get used to it. So yeah, equality, climate science, healthcare. There's things we have learned, but are we actually putting like the knowing into action to make it better? And we're actually going backwards on a lot of things right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I want to own that knowing better is an important step, but there's a difference between awareness and accountability, right? It's not just enough to know. Um, you have to be into action, right? It's not just enough to post. It's not just enough to shake our heads. It's not just enough to be disgusted at the news. That is privilege talking to just be like, meh, yeah, oh, again, clutching the pearls. Um, I think, unfortunately, our generation, Gen X in particular, had the luxury of thinking that certain fights were over, and goddamn, we've been proven wrong this year alone.
Mm. Yeah. Jeez. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, we listed some things here that we could give some examples on. We've sort of touched on them. The parenting family, like, adjusting approaches when we learn about neurodiversity. Like once we know about all types of learning styles and minds, and we start to see, like, this applies to neurodiversity, mental health, and addiction in our homes.
Yeah.
When we start to not see that as what's wrong with them, but like, this is how their brain works. This is like how they're responding to life at this time, then we can actually, do better to create environments and interactions that help everyone thrive, or, get access to the help they need. I think, as somebody, who is a caregiver, who is parenting, a neurodiverse kid with some, learning issues. Yeah, there is I've seen this with peers, and I've experienced it myself. You can know better and then, like, wait till you have more time to do better. Like, that's just
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
common. Or wait till you get the appointment for someone to help you to do better, and assume that there's like a way that, like, there's an answer out there. All those things are just like the hits and misses of that experience. But once you know like, the doing better is to just admit you don't know, like, you're just learning together. And like, that sometimes is the doing better. Like, we're constantly not going to look at you as a diagnosis, and we're going to constantly look at what's possible and what you are showing us and go from there. Right. So doing better isn't necessarily following someone else's, protocol or what society thinks. It literally is, admitting you don't know. And that's
Yeah.
kind of a scary way of doing better. And then, like, it's into caregiving, right? Like, how little structural support we receive, once you know that, the doing better is like taking care of yourself so you can advocate instead of burning out. Right. So, like,
Yeah.
these things are so granular. Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't feel like you're doing better when you're struggling, but sometimes that is doing better because you're advocating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then sort of, in the political social justice world, there's knowing very clearly, A, voter suppression exists and it's going to be suppressed even further as we sit here today. Gerrymandering steals voices. I just did a post recently about my experience of living in Ohio versus Chicago versus California. And my cousin was like, but all the cities are blue. I'm like, absolutely, the cities are blue. Any other state where they had that many big cities would be a blue state. But Ohio has been gerrymandered into an inch of its life. And yet, in knowing that suppression exists, knowing gerrymandering exists, and then going, well, my voice doesn't count. I'm not going to vote.
Right.
I mean,
That's the not doing
that's the
better.
knowing and not doing, for fuck's sake.
And I learned recently that, like, both sides of the aisle have a history of gerrymandering, and
Sure.
um and so once we all know better,
Right.
right? Like, why is it not that simple that every person gets a vote? Why is it, like, that's when you, like, if we know better but we're not doing better, if we know that even though the Confederate lost, they won the memory, they won the
Mm,
culture by never making the electoral college fair, by, like, gerrymandering to keep this going. It is embedding itself into not doing better, and then normalizing that. It's so strange. And that shows up in a lot of places right now, as people are seeing horrifying things. They're knowing, but they're not doing anything about it.
right.
And I'm guilty of that too. There are times where I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. And um, I also have to like go deal with this right now. So I'll get back to that. Like where like I'm like, I know something, I haven't done anything about it yet. And it is not all of it is my job, right? But like I feel like I am flooded with things I know that I'm not doing anything about.
Right, but we've talked about this before. People
Mhm.
have their lane, right? And we
Mhm.
will get overwhelmed by everything we know and could do something about theoretically. And that's not necessarily I know everything from what I've learned with you and our pod with Colleen, again, around caretaking and the structural breakdown that supports caregivers and so forth. I There's nothing I can do about that right now. So that is not the thing I'm focusing on, right? So I guess there is an aspect of knowing and prioritizing what you can do better on. Because if you are trying to fix everything, you're not going to fix anything.
No, I agree. And I think that's important to say because I think it's interesting because we went from parenting and caregiving out to like the macro, and I
Yeah,
was thinking one thing I skipped here was marriage. There's a
do
lot of
tell.
things like you can see and know better, like, oh, this is where he was coming from with that. But then,
Right.
like, am I responding better? Am I doing better? Like, again, that's another place where habits take a while.
Yeah.
Um, and it really requires you to see yourself on the same team, which is probably
Mm,
applies to all of these things. Like
sure.
if you could if you could not see yourself as like fighting a battle alone on any of these fronts, it might be easier to do better. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, environment's another one, right? We know the science on the climate. I mean, again, it's being erased as we speak, but if you've been paying any attention, you
Watch,
understand.
don't look up. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Yeah. Um, and yet we do, and I'm guilty of this. We cling to habits that will undo the future that our kids got us will inherit.
Hmm. Yeah. Health is a huge one. This is like
Yeah.
it's something we've covered in other podcast episodes. We will again because it's a big thing for people in our stage of life. But we know that stress, poor nutrition, like addiction to phones, scrolling, overwork, all of that is hurting us, and we're not changing it, right? And what's interesting is like you could have a therapist or a friend or a coach be like, do what you need to do to like take care of yourself to just, have some neutral time, whatever. There is a book or a coach or a therapist or a friend out there that will justify anything that you want to do that might not be healthy for you. And it might be okay in small amounts. I think
Sure.
moderation is a huge way to approach doing better. But
Mm,
I think health is a fascinating one. It is why it's $1 billion industry because, and I always say people just like, I'll be fine. I just need to fill in the blank. I just need to exercise
yep.
every morning. I just need to go to bed earlier. But there's so much insidiousness behind the I just need to. Otherwise, they wouldn't need us or, programs or gyms or anything. They would do it.
Right.
And so there's a lot keeping people like in between there's just a lot between the like, I know it's better and do I actually do it? And it's one of the cleanest examples we have of this. You know
Yeah.
better, you're not doing better. You know, if you eat that, you're going to like be awake all night, not feeling good, but you did it anyway.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're like you're like like you failed at anything. It's just like where is the link? That's literally the work we do with people between the
Yeah.
knowing better and the doing better.
Yeah. Like you said, I mean, it's okay to give us grace for something, we're not doing until it's almost ridiculous, right? And then there's also, you and I've had this conversation before on pods where it's like, gosh, what we didn't know in the 80s, what we and I think sometimes you sort of say I feel so bad about that and I look at it and I'm like, we didn't know. We didn't know. And I think we have to give ourselves grace for that as well, because
Yeah.
I do believe um I mean, I'm only going to speak for you and I and the people we know and love, but I feel like once we did know better, We did better.
Yeah, we
I mean,
try.
I definitely found I not too long ago found I had a friend, I was a freshman in high school and he was a sophomore and we had study hall together and we would because of study hall, you had to be quiet. So we would write notes back and forth to each other in study hall. And I found those recently. And 95% of it was hilarious. But goddamn, there was a few things I wrote in those notes. I was like, oh, Lisa, what were you thinking? And I just thought, again, I think, it
Mhm.
was youth, it was whatever. It was the 80s, and I would, if I could go back to my younger self and waggle my little finger at them. But
Yeah.
again, I can't shame her for something she didn't know.
Yes. So yes, like you said, give yourself grace. And in the areas like parenting and health, for example, like let's take
Yeah.
those two examples. Those are places you and I have clients like spend way too much time beating themselves up for it. So
Yes.
yes, give yourself grace, right? When we know better, though, staying stuck is going to like burn a hole in you if you don't do
Yes.
something with it.
Yep.
So, like here's the thing: you have to step up for your health. You gotta like, you're gonna love yourself more when you look back at your parenting if you at least tried, even if you fail. Like just
Yes.
try, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it also applies to like what you're paying attention to, and we give you a ton of credit if you're actually paying attention to this right now, because privileged people, I don't know why, but they're still like not paying attention to this, hoping this all blows over. Like, I didn't vote for this. This is awful. And if it's not affecting you, that's privilege. Okay. Privilege doesn't mean you didn't have a hard life. It just means that whatever's hard that you're noticing isn't affecting you. You don't have to pay attention to it.
Right.
But if you're aware, this is not a time to sit in that privilege and just cluck your tongues at the state of things, right? It is time to show up in the voting booth in your neighborhood and how you treat strangers and how you care for the planet and how you maybe want to just ask a question when someone says something that isn't factual. And like Lisa said to me, like it is not your job to do everything and meet all those things, but pick a lane where you, with your integrity of knowing better, can feel yourself doing one thing better, like one thing a little bit more that supports that knowing, right? Because that's how we're going to make change in the world, is by not not staying in that place where we're letting everything just kind of roll by because it doesn't affect us, because it's going to roll by you and hit someone smack in the face that doesn't deserve it
Hmm.
either.
Yeah.
So I think if you know something and you're concerned about it, find out more and question it.
I,
That's
I
that's
love
doing
that.
better. Questioning is doing better.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, this doesn't have to be grand pronouncements, but in that phrase, in those words by Maya Angelou, a, it is a gift, but it is also a challenge. And so it's time to rise to that challenge.
Yeah. And this applies in so many different areas. Like we keep coming to like what's happening in the world. I think of also like I have a client actually I know a couple of different people in life right now who have to address something really painful and difficult with someone they love, and they aren't doing it, right? And they know where this is going. And it's like, this is really, really tough. And maybe you're not meant to do it alone. Maybe you're meant to get help so that you can do the right thing. Maybe you need a professional to help you do the right thing there, for that person who is struggling that you're watching. Um, but it's going to eat you alive and change you if you don't do something with the knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so let's talk about calls to action.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Again, where do you already know better? Like, let's start
Yeah.
with that.
And what changes are you resisting?
Yeah.
Even though it's the right thing. And like you have an idea that once that change starts, things are gonna open up for you. And obviously that's something we coach on all the time. Like, what's scary if you got the thing you want or the thing you need, right? So like that could be why you're resisting.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as you were saying that, I was sort of picturing the idea of like pulling on a thread, right? Like until you do one small thing, it's going to feel hard. But what chances are a small action that would sort of align with your life, align with what you know in your gut is true, could really unfold naturally and gently and easily.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I just love this. What action could you take this week? What could you
Hmm.
do this week that would align your life with what you know in your gut is true?
I love that. I mean, and so it's, I mean, for me, we're getting close to, and circling back to the gerrymander thing, because as I was sitting here, I thought if anybody comes at me about what California is going to vote on November 4th,
Mm,
bring it. Because, for me, it's very important that I get everyone out I know to vote on a special election. California, we shouldn't have election day this year, but we do to counteract what's happening in other parts of the country. And so for me, it's making sure people get out and vote. And it's not just something big like this, right? It's looking at your school boards, your local elections. How can you help campaigns in your town or city that could use some extra um, woman power?
absolutely. And also, like for another example of that, and I love that. And that is one of the good things about having another kid gone, because that's sad and that's a huge change in my life. But it does free up a little more time for me to
Hmm.
do more, more in my community that I've been trying to do anyway. But another example is I've known for a year that I've osteoporosis. And so like tonight I'm starting like with a private in a small group, private Pilates
Mm.
instruction, and just to get back to some of the core strength that I feel like I lost in a lot of the ups and downs that we have. Like I just got out of certain routines, and so it's like reclaiming the strength that I need to have, that I know, like I've known this and I haven't been doing better for it really. So
Mm.
that is what I'm
Interesting.
doing this week. Like I know in my gut that I've been neglecting,
That's a good one.
rebuilding muscle and yeah, getting stronger. So that's one I
So there's one under health,
yeah.
right? If there's some things you've been putting off for whatever reason, school's back in session. Some of us have less humans in our house. Where can you take that space, that time, and turn it inwards to take care of yourself? Again, you as a caregiver, like check in on people who are doing caregiving. Don't
Mm,
barge in like a bull in a china shop. Call,
mhm.
oftentimes, and you and I both have had this experience. Let me know if you need anything. Spoiler
Mm.
alert, caregivers are never going to reach out. You, so
We're
it is,
busy.
yeah, it is imperative that if you know a caregiver, reach out to them. What can I do for you today? Could I bring you a meal? Could I whatever, and listen, right? Because we've had these conversations about sometimes being offered something, and you don't need it, and they do it
Mhm.
anyway. So
Yeah, I
it's
think I always
actually
say like,
asking.
if you're going to Trader Joe's, I probably need something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that. You texted me that. I'm like, I live in another state.
I know. Oh, joking. I think like parenting, I love this because there are a lot of things that I'm once again noticing about when you've launched a child and you're like, oh, I want to tell you to probably you should. I want to remind you. Like I'm really battling that urge to parent and like kind of swallowing some things and letting him come to me.
Mm,
And but I think like what we wrote here is also like apologize when you get it wrong, model growth,
yeah,
right? Like if you do
huge.
overstep and you sense you overstepped, apologize. Because the more we acknowledge that, the more they're gonna learn to do that too.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
love that. Environment, again, make one tiny sustainable shift this week. I would think most people know to use reusable water bottles, but like that's an easy peasy one. Stop buying, you know, plastic bottles. Fill a water bottle up. Uh, Recycle something. You
Please.
know, please. Yeah, I mean,
I'm
And
really impressed where my kid goes to school. There's all like reusable stuff there. It's great.
yeah, it's interesting. I remember driving to LMU, they had a banner saying that they had won some awards for being a sustainable college campus, which I
That's
always
cool.
thought was interesting. And again,
Where my other kid went to school, not
really, oh, that's
oh,
interesting. Well,
awful.
and I think the thing too is you fight against uh, the information out there, which is that, we may be fucked as far as the climate's concerned. Doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you shouldn't still try, right? Every little
Correct.
bit helps.
I think just being stewards and mindful and building habits of the
Yes.
footprint that you like, how much stuff do you need to have? How much waste do you
Right.
need to create
Well, that goes
is
back to the
mindful.
one the pod we had with Maria Dowd, and
Yes.
how much fast fashion do you need?
Right. Right. Um, community, speak up when you
Mm,
hear dehumanizing language online or in person. Now, I don't know about online because I think you made a good point. Like we don't need to be arguing with people online, but that can just be a
but
whole
but sometimes you can see that
right.
with friends and family.
Right. I think there's respectful ways to ask questions and to just not, for your own sake, for your own integrity, when you know better, it's going to eat at you if you let someone say something that you know is either incorrect or unkind. I definitely had that happen where I had such a like a regret hangover afterwards. Like, why didn't I say something when they said that? That was just so
Yeah.
untrue about women, or something like that, where I just sort of let it slide because I didn't really want to engage. And later I was
Yeah.
like, dang it. So yeah, encouraging you when you know better, do better. I'm not saying to like, be the party pooper everywhere, but there's a difference between not taking a joke and letting people be dehumanizing. It's just different.
That reminds me, and this is not our song, but because we used this recently, is that Jason Isbell song "White Man's World," and there's a lyric in
Yeah.
there about "I wish I hadn't laughed at the other white man's joke" or whatever. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we've all been in those moments where we felt a little bit like deer in a headlight, um, because I think for so
Like, did you really just say that?
well, exactly, so many times you're like, wait, what? Like we talked about the R word, like really? That's come back in fashion?
Yeah.
And it's still just it's like but even a simple like I saw this on you probably did too because our friend Elisa posted it, but and again who knows if it's true, but it was a little story about a woman being in an elevator and another woman in the elevator making a sort of racist remark about another ethnicity, and the one woman looks at the other woman just dead faced, and she was like, so she didn't even have to say anything, just her non-reaction, her non-laugh, right? Like that can be a way of resistance as well. A non-reaction can make somebody go, oh, I shouldn't have said that. So it
That's so
opens up the
true.
question. Anything else before we move to our song?
No, I did read once though that someone said when someone's like saying something insulting to you or about people that you could just say, can you say that again? Or
Yes, that's a good one.
yeah, like
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
yeah,
Explain to me why that's funny.
yeah,
That's a good one.
that's a good one.
So we had some ideas, and ultimately we both kind of went, I don't know if this exists. Because again,
We know better.
we know better. We do know, well, yes, yes, we know better. But sometimes I choose to choose the art over the artist. And so this is an amazing song. It does have amazing lyrics. It is Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. But I'm going to read these lyrics. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, the wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids on the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their needs? A summer's disregard, a broken bottle top, and one man's soul. They follow each other on the wind because they've got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change.
Mm.
No, 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 no.
I do love that song.
I mean,
I loved when he did that at the Super Bowl, I think. I think that's
Mike, we could do a whole pod, and we
Mhm.
won't on Michael Jackson, but
It's the first time we've said that. We
yeah,
always say
yeah,
we can do a whole
yeah.
bunch. We won't.
I mean, again, Gen X, God, we grew,
Yeah.
as did Boomers, right? Jackson 5, and then Michael Jackson.
Prince.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so impactful in our music history. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like he was abused as well, and it doesn't forgive anything he may or may not have done, but he
Yeah.
was still an amazing artist, and
Yeah.
that's that's all I'll
Yeah.
say about that. All right, so as we wrap up, we're just gonna say it again. Do the best you can until you know better.
And when you know better, do better.
Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back next week.
Bye.